Tennis's biggest names are showing up to Roland Garros this year, but they're not playing by the usual rules. Not on the court. In the press room, Aryna Sabalenka, the world number one. Coco Gauff, America's biggest star in the sport. They walked into their pre-tournament press conferences, answered questions for exactly 15 minutes, and walked right back out. No extended sit-downs. No warm chats with broadcasters. No bonus access. Just the bare minimum required to avoid a fine, and then silence. And that number, 15 minutes, wasn't random. It was a message. Because 15 minutes represents 15%. And 15% is roughly how much of Roland Garros' total revenue actually ends up in the player's prize pool. The people putting on the show, the ones the fans come to watch, the ones whose names sell the tickets and the broadcast rights and the sponsorship deals, they're walking away with 15 cents of every dollar the tournament generates. The players have had enough. This protest didn't come out of nowhere. It's been building for months, and it almost went much further. Back at the Italian Open just weeks ago, words like boycott were floating around the locker room. A full Grand Slam boycott. Players refusing to show up at all. That would have been nuclear. The kind of move that shuts everything down and forces everyone to pay attention. But cooler heads stepped in. The players landed on something more surgical. Something that sends the message without blowing up the tournament entirely. A work-to-rule protest. Do exactly what the contract requires. Not one thing more. It sounds simple, but in professional tennis, media access is currency. Broadcasters pay enormous rights fees precisely because they get exclusive access to the stars. Those extended post-match interviews, the sit-downs, the behind-the-scenes moments, that's what networks are paying for. When players strip that away, the financial pressure moves up the chain fast. It stops being a player issue and starts being everyone's problem. Now let's talk about the actual numbers, because this is where things get genuinely difficult to ignore. The French Tennis Federation announced that the 2026 Roland Garros prize pool would rise to €61.7 million, a 9.5% increase. They presented this as generosity, progress, a show of good faith toward the players. But here's what they didn't lead with. Overall tournament revenue hit €395 million last year. That's a 14% jump. The prize money grew at 5.4%. And the players' actual share of the pie didn't stay flat. It shrank. It dropped to 14.3%. So while the tournament made significantly more money, the people generating that money took home a smaller slice than before. The Federation found a way to give players a raise in absolute terms while simultaneously cutting their percentage. That's a very specific kind of math, and the players noticed. What the players are asking for is a 22% share. That's the benchmark already set by the combined ADP and WTA 1000 events, the tier just below Grand Slams. Think about that for a second. The four most prestigious tournaments in the world, the events every player dreams of winning, the stages that define careers and legacies, they pay players a lower percentage than the regular tour stops. The bigger the event, the smaller the cut. And the governing bodies have structured it that way for decades. Players are also pushing for something that doesn't get talked about enough in this conversation: long-term health benefits and pensions. Tennis is a brutal sport on the body. Careers are short. Injuries are constant. And when it's over fast. Unlike team sports where players have unions, collective bargaining agreements, and established benefit structures, tennis players have operated largely as independent contractors for most of the sport's professional history. They pay for their own coaching, their own travel, their own physiotherapy, their own everything. The prize money isn't just income. It's the entire financial foundation of a career. Coco Gauff made this point in a way that's hard to shake. She wasn't talking about herself when she raised the alarm. She was talking about the players ranked 50 through 200 in the world. Think about what it means to be one of the 200 best tennis players on the planet. You've beaten hundreds of thousands of competitors to get there. You've dedicated your entire life to this sport. And Gauff says many of those players are living paycheck to paycheck. They're flying economy across continents, sharing hotel rooms, scraping together enough to cover their coaching fees between tournament checks. The prize pool increase sounds meaningful until you realize how little of it reaches them after expenses are taken out. When the French Tennis Federation raised the total pot, Gauff made clear that the intention behind the push was never just about the top names. It was about making the sport viable for the players outside the spotlight. Because right now it isn't. The Federation responded to the protest with measured language. They expressed regret. They scheduled talks with player representatives. They didn't dismiss the concerns outright, which is at least a starting point. But scheduled talks are not the same as solutions, and players have heard reassurances before. The patience in the locker room is thin. What makes this moment different from previous tennis labor disputes is the coordination. This isn't one outspoken player making noise after a loss. This is a coalition. Men and women, top seeds and mid-tier players, different nationalities, different management teams, aligned on the same demand, executing the same strategy. The 15-minute press conference rule wasn't improvised. It was agreed upon. That kind of organizational discipline is unusual in an individual sport, and it reflects how seriously the players are taking this. There's also a broader context worth understanding. Tennis is in a commercial moment unlike anything it's experienced before. Global broadcast deals have exploded in value. Streaming platforms are bidding aggressively for rights. Sponsorship revenue is at record highs. The sport is more financially powerful than it has ever been. And at the exact moment when that rising tide should be lifting all boats, the players are watching their percentage go down. That timing matters. It makes the federation's position much harder to defend publicly. Roland Garros is one of the most watched sporting events in the world. The clay courts, the history, the atmosphere, it's irreplaceable. But what makes it irreplaceable is the players. And right now, those players are telling the world, through 15-minute press conferences and bypassed broadcaster sit-downs, that they understand their leverage. They're not walking away from the tournament, but they're not playing along like nothing is wrong either. Whether the French Tennis Federation moves meaningfully before the final is played, or whether this dispute drags into Wimbledon season and beyond, one thing is already clear. The conversation about how Grand Slams distribute their revenue has changed permanently. Players have numbers, they have unity, and they have a global platform. The math is on their side. The question is whether the people signing the checks are willing to acknowledge it before the players decide 15 minutes isn't enough of a statement anymore.